Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Gizmo Joe. Today, I have my full hands-on review of the Ulefone Mix 2, or Ulefone, not sure how to pronounce it still. Those of you who have missed my unboxing video, basically I got this guy in the mail a couple days ago, real cheap. The pre-sale was about $100 US, and so I thought that it looked pretty good and I thought I'd give it a try. So those of you who missed that, the main features are just found on the back here. So you got a dual camera setup, that's 13 megapixels and 5 megapixels. Then you have the quad-core MT6737 processor. You got 2 gigabytes of RAM, which, I mean, for this day and age is on the low side. 16 gigabytes of storage, but you can pop a micro SD card in there, so that's not a huge issue. You got your fingerprint scanner on the back. You have a 3,300 milliamp hour battery. You have a 5.7 720p display. And it's an 18:9 aspect ratio, so it's obviously a bit thinner in the width there, and it's longer. So that seems to be all the rage nowadays, so we'll get to that in a minute. And then it's running Android 7.0. So again, for $100, it doesn't seem too bad. Now, one gripe that I have, and this is typical of almost all the Chinese manufacturers, is that, the advertisements that you see in GearBest and even the box, I mean, to me, this looks like it's some sort of curved display. This is not a curved display. The actual product is completely flat across. So it's a bit misleading. And when you look at the pictures on GearBest.com, they show the back of this, and it's almost got like this shiny kind of almost a metally appearance. And this is anything but. It's just a solid piano black, and I'll get to that in a minute. So let's talk about some of the good things first and foremost. Number one, it has this cover on the back, which is great. It came with it. It was right on it. It fits really well. It's obviously made for this particular phone. So that's a plus. I like that. It does come with one of these plasticky screen protectors as well. So that was already installed on the phone when I took it out. A couple things about it. I mean, it's not a bad looking phone. The issue that I have with it is that it is very, very shiny. So it's a fingerprint magnet. You can kind of see it here. It's very, it looks, after some usage, it looks pretty bad. So I found myself constantly trying to wipe it off, trying to make it look a little bit better. So that's just something to keep in mind. If fingerprints drive you nuts, this guy probably isn't the one to go for because it is a fingerprint magnet. Anyway, so the fingerprint reader is on the back here, and you can see that dual camera set up there. But the fingerprint reader on the back is actually pretty good. It's pretty responsive. And it unlocks, I really don't have any issue with it. I mean, I've been testing it for the past few days. It's worked probably 9 times out of 10, and I've been pretty pleased with it. The display here isn't too bad. The viewing angles, sorry for the glare there, the viewing angles are decent. So if you're looking at this on an angle, it's still pretty good. Again, it's only a 720p screen, but I mean, I couldn't really spot any pixelation, like maybe a little bit, but I think for the average user, everyday sort of use, you're not going to have any issue with this at all. The screen is fairly bright, and it's got good color reproduction as well. I mean, I was watching YouTube videos and stuff like that on here, doing a little bit of gaming, and I thought the panel looked pretty good. It's only 720, but at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of these things, my opinion is that you got to get it in your hand. You got to use it on a day-to-day basis to see how the performance is. I mean, you could talk to me all day about specs and numbers and all that sort of thing, but, I don't know if it's necessarily indicative for the average user. Those of you who are interested, though, I have run it through some benchmarking. So I use Geekbench 4, so that's the latest one, I believe. But if we go into history here, so I did it pretty much the first day. So if we look here, our CPU scores aren't fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. So your single core score is 581, and you can see some of the comparisons here. So it's pretty low. If you look at the multi-core, you're looking at 1651 for this particular device, and again, pretty low in comparison. But again, you have to remember that this device is only $100. So, you know, you have to keep that in mind. If we look at some of the render script scores here is 1100. I mean, again, it's not fantastic, but, you know, again, you're paying $100. So you're looking at about like an S4 era sort of phone. So definitely not the best. The battery, again, isn't fantastic either. It gives you medium confidence. And that I just did a partial drain on that one. So those of you who are familiar with the Geekbench scoring, you can run it all the way from 100% down to 0. I just ran the partial test, which is about 3 hours. And that's the score it gave me. Anyway, again, using it on a day-to-day basis, I think it's pretty fluid. I didn't really have any issues with it. Again, I wasn't using a whole heck of a lot of apps or anything like that. I wasn't doing much with it other than making phone calls, messaging. Again, I played some little Asphalt Nitro. That was okay. We'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, just for basic web browsing, YouTube videos and such, I think it's fine. Speaking of YouTube videos, there are speakers back here. I don't know if you can see that, but there is just one mono speaker. Now, in my opinion, I think that the speaker is pretty loud. It's not tinny either, so I have to give props to Ulefone for actually making a budget device with a speaker that is halfway decent. Now, I wouldn't say that it's great. I've definitely heard a lot better, but again, for the price point, you have to, you know, just give it to them in that regard. Also on the bottom of this phone here, you probably can't see it. It's very hard to see. They opted for just the standard micro USB instead of the USB-C. That doesn't bother me either. I know some people like the faster transfer speeds and stuff like that. But again, I didn't have any issues with it. So going into the build quality of this particular device, the keys here, first of all, everything's made out of plastic. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have a premium feel. And again, the advertising material and the box and everything makes you think otherwise. And make no mistake, it's not a premium feeling phone. It is all plastic. The other thing that kind of bothers me, this is a pro and a con. So those of you who saw my unboxing video, you know that I was able to pull this entire back panel off. So there is that little notch there. You get your fingernail in there and you can pry it off. So that's actually a plus because you know, a lot of phones nowadays, they don't have removable batteries. This one does. So if your battery craps out on you or whatever, you can swap it out. You can also access all of your SIM trays, and it's a dual SIM and a micro SD card, so that's a plus. However, where the back panel sort of meets the rest of the body, you can feel it. It's not flush. It's almost like a sort of a jagged, not jagged, but you know, just like a sharp sort of edge where the back panel meets the front panel or the front body there. So like in your hand, it's noticeable. You know, if I run my finger across it like that, it's not a smooth, rounded edge. It's definitely catches. So, you know, again, it's not a premium device. It definitely shows some of its budget colors there. Going into, I'll just fire up this game here, just so you can see. I mean, it's halfway decent. I mean, Asphalt Nitro is not, I would say it's kind of a mid-tier game. I wouldn't say it's super demanding. But I was playing it the other night, and, you know, I didn't really have any issues with it. There was a bit of stuttering. It took a little longer. No, it's trying to get me to, yep, come here. No. Let's cancel that. No, thank you. So again, you can hear the speaker as well. Sorry, I haven't installed Google Play services. It wants me to install this stuff. Not now. Not now. I don't want to claim any of these. Yeah, alright, fine, whatever. Anyway, so now we can finally get into the game. But, I mean, as you can see, it's not terrible. And I gotta add here. Sorry, guys. And yeah, that'll do. And I haven't been playing very long, obviously, so I only have the little default car. Now, I found that it takes a little while for it to load, but other than that, once it gets into the actual game, it performs all right. There's a little bit of graphical kind of stuttering a bit, I guess you could call it. No tearing, it's definitely playable, but here you can kind of see it's a little choppy, but it's not that big of a deal. And I mean, it's definitely playable. Again, this is running on a quad-core MediaTek 6737. I'm terrible, sorry guys. 6737 processor on 2 gigabytes of RAM, and it is definitely playable. And you can hear that music. The speaker is actually doing a fairly decent job. Again, it's only a mono speaker, but you know, it's not tinny. It's definitely usable. Anyway, let's get out of this. So, as you can see, you can definitely do some light gaming on here. Again, it's a mid-tier sort of game, so I mean, I don't know if you like to play really graphically intensive stuff, if this guy will start to slow down. I would imagine so, because again, it is just sort of a budget phone. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the performance just on a day-to-day basis. And again, I've only been using it for a couple days, so I mean, I haven't really put it through the ringer, but it's not too bad. One thing I will say is that with use, it definitely does get warm. I wouldn't say it's super hot. I have felt phones that get really, really hot, which, you know, doesn't inspire a whole heck of a lot of confidence. This one does get warm, but it's not uncomfortably so. So, you know, it's not a huge issue. So, going to the back of the phone, I want to touch upon the dual camera setup here. Now, I took a few sample photos for you guys to look at, and I'll just show them on the screen here. You probably won't have the best of view, but I'll try to edit them into the end of the video as well so you can have a better idea of what it looks like. So the dual camera setup is supposed to be so that, you know, you get the blurring sort of effect. So whatever you focus in on, it's almost like a DSLR. So you have two different lenses that are capturing different like depth of field and all that sort of stuff. So it just makes it look a little bit more professional. Now, as far as the camera quality itself, I think it's not bad. I mean, for $100, I mean, I think there's a good level of detail in a lot of these photos. And I know you can't really see it through my video here, but there is a decent amount of detail in here. So I'm pretty happy with that. But the dual camera setup on here, I do not believe is legitimate. The reason being is because I took a bunch of photos and I tried to essentially focus in on something in the foreground and have everything else blurred in the background. But instead, and that's in theory, that's what the dual camera setup is supposed to do. But instead, what this phone does is it blurs just sort of all around the edges. And that's sort of indicative to me of, you know, sort of almost like a filter in, you know, something like Instagram or Snapchat or something like that, where it's simulating it. Now, I could be wrong, but I didn't think that this was an actual dual camera setup. Again, even with these here, you can see how, like, you know, this flower bit was supposed to be in focus. Everything else is supposed to be blurred. But instead, it starts to blur around the flower bits as well. So it's not really capturing what's in the foreground. It's sort of mimicking, you know, it does a decent job. I mean, at first glance, you would say, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And I mean, like I said, the camera quality is halfway decent. But I just don't think that dual camera setup is being utilized properly, if it even is functioning at all. So it might be a situation where the, you know, could just be for show. Unfortunately, a lot of these Chinese manufacturers are, you know, jumping on the trends and things like that, and, you know, not really delivering on what they're promising. But that being said, it's $100, and I believe I got it for $100 on a pre-sale. I think right now you can get it for about $130, maybe something like that. I'll leave a link down in the description so you guys can have a look at it. You can purchase it if you like. But these are relatively new. They just came out, you know, probably a couple months ago. I had to wait until I got back from the States in order to get my hands on it. But I mean, for the price, it's not a terrible phone. The pros, definitely the fingerprint reader is pretty quick. It's pretty responsive. The screen, even though it's 720, I think looks pretty good. It's got really good color reproduction, and I'm happy with the speaker as well. I think, you know, for the price, for a mono speaker, it definitely gets really loud. It definitely gives you a nice range of sound. I wouldn't say, you know, you have fantastic bass or anything like that, but it's, you know, a nice mid-level sound. But you know, some of the cons, the camera, I don't, even though it's decent, I don't think it's fantastic, and I'm not entirely convinced that that dual lens setup is actually being utilized. Also, I'm a bit disappointed with the marketing material. You know, it kind of makes you believe, I mean, this to me, even though I know it doesn't say it in the description on GearBest or anything like that, but it does make it look like a much more premium phone than it actually is. When you get it, it's a bit underwhelming. And like I said, the plastic on here is just a fingerprint magnet. It looks kind of gross after some use. And it just doesn't have that premium feel. The build quality is a bit subpar, I think. But again, for the price, I think it's definitely you know, worth checking out. It may not be worth a purchase, but definitely worth checking out. And I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can have a look yourselves. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Ulefone Mix 2 hands-on review. I hope you guys like this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, subscribe, share it on social media, whatever you can do to help me out would be fantastic. I'm going to come back next time with the Leagu Kika Mix. I got my hands on that one. I'm going to be doing an unboxing video pretty soon, and then I'm going to play with that one for a few days and get back to you guys. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and stick around. I am going to be trying to crank out more videos more regularly. All right? Thanks for watching. Have a good one, and I'll catch you next time.